Good afternoon once again. So the today's session will be mainly about the architecture of SIC. So before we get into the various details about SIC architecture, so probably if you have any doubts on the previous class or any clarifications required, probably you can let me know so that we can discuss that and get into the SIC architecture. So if you remember in the previous two classes, we talked about how the architecture of a computer is going to have influence as far as the design of a system software is concerned. We have clearly distinguished between application software and system software, and I am sure at the end of the day, yesterday you had some confidence or input that when somebody talks about system software or application software, we can clearly differentiate and understand what is required as a engineer or a software engineer. So with that, probably if you have no doubts, let me get into the architecture of SIC. So any doubts?
No, sir.
Fine, thank you. Yes. Now let us identify the hypothetical computer. As we discussed in the previous class, we cannot take the real-time computer to understand the system software design because the real-time hardware is very, very complex in nature. And hence, we take a hypothetical computer which is going to have some of the concepts or very important concepts of our actual real-time systems, but they may not be that complex enough, but it is sufficient enough to understand the design or the working of a various system software that we are going to discuss. As you know, we are going to discuss about assemblers, linkers, loaders, compilers, macroprocessors. For this purpose, we are going to consider a hypothetical computer which is not available in the real-time market, but which is coined or designed only from the purpose of understanding these concepts of system software, and hence we call it as a hypothetical computer. So as we have seen in the previous class, SIC stands for the simplified instructional computer or a simple instructional computer. Both mean the same, but whatever it is, SIC is the lower version of the two-level architecture what we have in SIC. The next level what we have in SIC is SIC XE, which is going to be extra equipment. We'll talk about that maybe next class, but today's class is devoted to the architecture of SIC. So before we discuss about the architecture of SIC, let me understand quickly what are the various processors. In a computer, we know that we'll be using a lot of processors. Sometimes we call them as a microprocessors. If you can, some of you can let me know the type of microprocessors you know or you learned something about them, and what do you mean by a microprocessor, or what strikes to you when somebody talks about a microprocessor. Any couple of inputs from your end?
Small unit performs a small task.
Pardon?
Small unit to perform the small task.
Small unit. You mean to say microprocessor is a small unit? I'm talking about microprocessor, MUP. You heard about CPU? What is CPU?
Yes, sir.
Sir, it's nothing but a function. Microprocessor, it's nothing but a function of central processing unit, like
Okay.
the function.
Okay. So before we let us take you to the first year computer organization, the CO, what you have studied, where you might have studied about the building blocks of a computer. If you precisely remember, we have an input device, we have an output device, in between we have a memory, in between we have a processor. Hope that figure comes in front of you now. We have input, output, memory, below that there is a processor. So that processor is what we are talking about. Again, if you go to processor, you might have seen MAR, MDR, program counter, IR, instruction register, R0, R1, R2 up to Rn-1. Then we have a arithmetic logic unit, you have a control unit. Is that figure coming in front of you now?
Yes, sir.
The basic connectivity of various components or building blocks of a computer. Input, output, memory, with below the memory we had a processor which had a MAR, memory, address, register, MDR, memory, data, register, then we had IR, instruction register, we had a program counter PC, then we had a status word, which is for a flag register, we had a set of registers named from R0 to Rn-1, then we had arithmetic logic unit, then we had a control unit. This complete picture is going to be a processor. So if you look at input, it is only like a keyboard where input can be given, nothing else can be done. If you look at the output, it is only a mechanism that can take out of the processor data, how it should be represented in the form of your screen or maybe in terms of print or whatever it is. Memory, as it says, it is only for a storage, nothing else can be done. But actual processing, as the name says processor, the actual processor is happening inside the processor. And that's what many times we say that actual hardware of a computer, even though input is a device, output is a device, memory is a device, more or so they are going to be considered as hardware as well. But actual hardware, whenever we say, we mean that processor, which is having various mechanisms of registers, various sets of arithmetic logic unit, various control. That is actually heart of our brain of your computer, and that's what we mean by a processor. Your CPU is part of that particular processor. Your control processing unit is going to reside in the actual processor component. So processor means maybe your microprocessor in general, or the entire component of the computer that makes the system to function, or that is going to have lot of what you call components where you can make your operation of a computer. For example, you give 2 plus 3, addition of two numbers, 2 plus 3. How is it going to happen? Through input device, you give 2 plus and 3. It will be stored in the memory. Then who has to execute that? Your control unit has to take the data through MAR, MDR from the memory, bring it to the registers of a microprocessor, processor in general, then process through arithmetic logic unit, because there is a plus symbol, 2 plus 3, you are going to add those values and get the result 5. That result again goes back to the memory. From memory, it is transferred back to the output device. This is actually how the computer framework is, how computer is going to function, that you are all aware of it. But our concentration is not on the remaining 3 parts of input, output or memory, but we are going to talk about the processor. That processor is what we are going to interested. Whenever I say architecture, we mean about the processor only. That's the clarity what I want you to have at this point of time. Now, having said that, let us look at what is architecture for SIC. As we have briefly identified in the previous class, whenever someone asks you about architecture, you should remember these 7. What are they? What is the memory size of a given architecture? What is the register set of the given architecture? What are the various data formats that architecture is going to support? What are the various instruction formats a processor is going to support? What are the various addressing modes a processor is going to have? What are the various instruction sets that are going to be available at the end? What are the input and output processing mechanism an architecture is going to support? So probably these things you might have heard about during your CO. Anybody is remembering still these names? Memory, registers, data formats, instruction formats, addressing modes, instruction set, input. If you recall, you might have studied in the module 3 of your computer organization, where we have mainly information related to IA32. Any recall on this? Do you remember these things that you have studied? If that is the case, it is easy for you to connect now. That's just I wanted to know. Nothing else. So if you can recall and remember, so it is going to be easy for you to understand from SIC. As I said, architecture is general framework, but each processor will have its own architecture. That is the reason why whenever you go for a system software design, you should understand each architecture is separately or uniquely, because concepts are same like this: memory, register, data formats, but each architecture will have a independent or unique system of representation or way of looking at. For example, you might have seen big endian assignment or little endian assignment. What is that concept is called is all about? It is nothing but how I am going to access the memory. I may take from left to right, or I may take from right to left. Whatever the format, I'm going to access the memory at the end of the day. But is it going to make a change? Yes, of course, because some processors will read the data from left to right, that is from MSB to LSB. Some will read from LSB to MSB. That is going to make a huge difference. If you as a designer do not understand whether the given processor is based on little endian or big endian, finally you are going to mess up the things, because you want some data to be processed. Instead of that, the other end data will be processed. Entire confusion will happen in the data processing. So unless you have those critical information, you cannot further write a program. That's what the meaning of a architecture. So each processor is unique. Each processor is having its own way of representation of all these 7. Memory will be different, register set will be different, data formats will be different, instruction formats will be varying, addressing modes will be different and plenty, instruction sets will keep on definitely varying based on the addressing modes, and input output processing also is going to change. So that is the concept with which we are going to start, and SIC architecture is what we are going to see in detail now. Let us get into the first one, the memory. So SIC architecture is going to have, as we said, it is a very, very basic level architecture of SIC family. And we know there are two variations of SIC. One is a simple or standard SIC, other one is a SIC XE. We are going to see the simple or standard one at this point of time, for which we are discussing about the memory. As you see here, memory is normally starting from, if you look at the memory hierarchy, memory starts with a bit, it goes to the nibble, later we have a byte, then we have a tracks, then we have a sectors, then we have a pages. It goes like that. Similarly, when you look at how the address is being used, or how the memory is going to be addressed, rather, you might have heard about byte addressability. In the CO subject, teacher would have discussed about the byte addressability. Why we are not talking about bit addressability? Because accessing your data at bit level is very, very, very cumbersome, or it is very, very challenging task. That is the reason why bits are grouped together in terms of bytes, and later we start utilizing those bytes. That is the reason why byte addressability has come into picture, and your SIC is also a byte addressable, meaning that every time when I access a memory, the low level unit which I can access is a byte, not a bit. Within a byte, you can access the bits based on your instruction, but anytime when somebody talks about memory accessibility in SIC, since it is a byte addressable, it means that whenever I take a unit of memory at the low level, it is going to be a byte addressable, or it is going to be a byte in nature. That is the meaning of a byte addressability. Next, we have LSB or MSB, which you might be aware, I believe. LSB stands for least significant, whereas MSB stands for most significant. As I said, depending upon if it's little endian or big endian, it might move from left to right or from right to left. If it is a little endian, it will be taken from left to right, that is from LSB to MSB, least significant bit to most significant bit. If it is a big endian, it is opposite direction, wherein the lower address will be loaded at the most significant bit position, just reverse direction. It doesn't matter from the memory point of view, but processors, they have been designed such way that some companies or some manufacturers will take from LSB to MSB, some manufacturers will take from MSB to LSB. It is only a accessing issue, not a memory issue. Memory is one and the same. It doesn't matter whether you are using a little endian or big endian, but it matters to us when you are designing a architecture, when you're designing a system software, because we should know whether it is a left to right accessibility or a right to left accessibility. So for an end user, it has no meaning, but for a developer like us, yes, it is going to be very, very meaningful and informative. And then we have to see what type of addressability it is. It is a byte addressable. It is also going to follow the little endian assignment. Your SIC machine architecture is going to follow little endian architecture, meaning that your lower address of a memory is going to be loaded at the least significant bit. So that's the concept of a little endian. Probably you can recall what you have studied in CO. Now, having said that, memory of SIC is a byte addressable. What is the size of the memory? The size of the memory is 215 bytes, meaning that I can have so many number of addresses. At a given point of time, I can go up to 215. Can I have how many kilobytes or megabytes 215 means? Can any of you help me? How you can convert 2 power 15 into kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes? How do you figure out how many kilobytes or megabytes or gigabytes it is now? We have some answers. 2 power 15 is equal to how many kilobytes or how many megabytes or how many gigabytes or whatever it is. Any answers? Hello? Hope you're all there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no answers. I feel, see, I will not be able to see the screen. I am at my presentation. If you do not respond, I feel some connection is lost. And I need at least some response from each of you. Okay. You got the question? I'm talking about 2 power 15 bytes is the size of a memory. How do you represent that in terms of kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, petabytes, zettabytes? Okay.
Gigabytes.
Eh? How many?
Gigabyte.
How many?
32
32.
32?
gigabytes.
KB.
32768, sir.
Are you sure?
Uh,
32768 is not a gigabyte. You start from kilo, then go to mega,
32.
then giga, then peta, then zetta. So 2 power 10 is equal to what? It is a kilobyte. Agree? 2 power 20 is nothing but megabyte. 2 power 30 is nothing but gigabyte. 2 power 40 is going to be petabytes. So like that. So we are having only 2 power 15. So mathematically, how I can write now? 2 power 10 into 2 power 5. Your logarithms or your algebra will tell you 2 power 15 can be split into 2 power 10 into 2 power 5. So 2 power 10 means kilobyte. 2 power 5 means 32. So precisely 2 power 15 is equal to 32 kilobytes. Able to follow?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
2
sir.
power 15 we are splitting into either 2 power 10 or 2 power 20 or 30 like that. So once you split that, whichever is available extra, that is going to be the number. So many kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes we can have. So this 2 power 15 is equivalent to 32 kilobytes. That means the total size of SIC machine memory is 2 power 15, meaning that I can have at any point of time 32,000, that is 32,768, whatever you said. So many number of address locations or so many number of addresses can be considered at a given point of time. That is the idea behind the memory. So 2 power 15 means 32K addresses or 32 kilobyte size of the memory. Okay. Next, of course, we have a word concept. Each word in SIC is going to be 3 bytes. So please have a conviction here that word is a representation of number of bytes, and each architecture will have different way or different varieties of looking at it. If you have seen IA32, a word is going to be 4 bytes. But here in SIC, the word is going to be 3 bytes. So don't get confused now. As I said, each architecture will have its own way of representation, and hence in SIC, a word is going to be 3 bytes. 3 byte means 3 into 8, 24 bits. So this is precisely about the memory. So if you want to make a note of memory, so SIC memory is byte addressable. It is based on little endian assignment. The total number of memory locations we can have in SIC is 2 power 15, that is equal to 32K. The total size of memory is 2 power 15 bytes, that is equal to 32 kilobytes, and each word in SIC memory is going to be 3 bytes length. So these are the points what you can remember from the memory point of view as far as the SIC is concerned. Now let us go to the next one, which is a register set. Okay. So once you know there is a memory which can be used by a processor, then let us see what are the registers we have. So before I go to register set, let me quickly have in the memory hierarchy, what is the position of registers? Registers are also memory components. How do you see them from the memory hierarchy point of view? What are the characteristics of registers compared to your secondary memory, cache memory, and other types of memory? If you can recall the memory hierarchy, let me know what is the position we have for the registers, in the sense, in terms of their speed, in terms of their cost, in terms of their volume or numbers and stuff like that. Any inputs that you have from registers? When I say register, what do you get in mind from a processor perspective?
Storage unit.
Storage, no doubt. Register is nothing but a storage unit. Perfect. Next.
They are bit expensive, sir.
They are a bit expensive. Exactly. Next.
Fast.
They are faster.
It's not faster. They are very, 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 very fast. You should use so many varies. They are like a jet, bullet train. They're of that
Used
fast.
to transfer the data.
Pardon?
Used to transfer the data from memory to.
See, register will not be you. Okay, register is only location. You are going to use it as a container. That's what one of you said, no? It is to store the data. Yes. So important is data storage. Second is the speed of operations. Any next input or characteristic of registers of a processor? Okay, that distinguishes it from other components of memory. Because if you look at the memory hierarchy, we have registers. Above registers, we have a cache memory. Above cache memory, we have a main memory. Above main memory, we have a virtual memory. Then we have a secondary memory. This is how we can categorize the hierarchy of a memory. So we are talking about the bottom level registers. Registers are under the control of a processor. And these are the registers what we are going to talk about. Since they are under control of a processor, their speed is very, very, very fast. Because they are directly accessed by the processor. And they are, of course, are meant for storage because they are here to get the data. Next. They are costly. Yes, some of you told it is costly, expensive. That is true.
Size, sir. Small.
Size.
It's temporary storage, sir.
Registers are temporary storage. Perfect. Yes. What else? Somebody was talking about size.
Sir. Small in size compared to the cache memory.
Pardon?
Compared to the cache memory, it is smaller in size.
Yeah. The register size is very, very small. The register size is normally equal to the word size in a given processor. So even in SIC, if you look at here, the size of a register is 3 bytes. Just now we have seen that the word in SIC is nothing but 3 bytes. So that is precisely the size. But apart from that, the number of registers also will be very, very less, because registers are stored where? In the processor. You cannot have a processor as big as your computer. No, processor is a very, very, very small entity or unit or component which cannot afford to have more number of registers, but still they will be having some good sizable number of registers. If you look at SIC here, we have listed how many? We have listed only 5 registers here, and these 5 registers are only available in SIC. So that's what we have here. So we have 5 registers which are part of our SIC. Like that, we'll have 10, 15, 20, 32. What do you mean by IA32 machine or IA64? That is nothing but precisely the bit size, meaning that the registers are of that number, or the size of registers are going to be of that category, 32, 64, 128. They are going to talk about the internal, or it is a representation of your registers or the actual key locations of your processor. So that is the concept. So coming to the SIC now, there are only 5 registers which are supported by SIC, because SIC is a very, very simple hardware system or architecture, and size of each register in SIC is again 3 bytes. Okay. So internally, we will not be able to represent your registers by names. Internally, it is only a numbers, because we know that at the end of the day, we are going to play with the mission level coding or the mission identified language, which is your zeros and ones. So to represent anything in zeros and ones, we need to convert them into the proper nomenclature. In this case, of an architecture, we have registers, no doubt, and all those registers are going to be represented internally with some unique numbers. Those numbers are nothing but your register number. If you look at the table here, we have listed 5 registers, and each register is having a unique number, and we have a description here. So let us go one by one here now. So first one is a register A, which is called as a accumulator. So hope you have heard about this accumulator. This is a very, very, very important register in any processor. You go to any processor, however simple they are, you will be having accumulator. Without accumulator, you cannot imagine a processor to exist. That is the reason why accumulator is going to be part of most of the every processor rather, and many times they represent it as a ACC, sometimes they represent as a. So representation is not important here. The important is the purpose. So as you say, accumulator, the purpose of accumulator is to involve in various operations, maybe mathematical operations, or maybe logical operations, or maybe memory to memory data transfer operations, or memory to processor data transfer operations. Wherever there is only single operand is involved, the other operand is going to be apparently from the accumulator. Intuitively, accumulator is going to be used as one of the operand. You will appreciate this when you go to some of the programs or when you discuss about the instruction set. But till then, what you can keep in mind is accumulator is a very important register of any processor, more so with the SIC machine architecture as well, and the purpose of this is to be used as one of the intermediate storage for various operations, including mathematical operations, logical operations, data transfer operations, especially where a single operand is involved. So when we have a binary activity and single operand is given, the other operand will be taken by default from the accumulator. So that is the concept of a accumulator. And second, sometimes you have computed, for example, A and B, you have computed the sum of A and B, and where to store the result? The result will be stored in the accumulator. Sometimes you are transferring the data from one location to another location, and the destination is missing in our instruction. Where data will be stored? It will be stored by default in the accumulator. So depending upon what type of instruction we are going to use, if the destination or a source is missing, so depending upon the instruction description, accumulator can be considered as one of the source or the destination, as the case may be. It's very important, accumulator. The number given for accumulator is 0. Next we have a index register. Index is a one which is going to be used as addressing. So index is mainly, you might have seen with arrays. For example, I declare a student array, student 0, student 1, student 2, student 3. You will be using a spare brackets and representing in a C++, where we call them as a array. What are these 0, 1, 2, 3, 4? They are nothing but your indices, meaning that every student array can represent to multiple students with the same name. Student 0 represents the first student, student 1 represents the second student, student 9 represents the 10th student. Like that, we are going to use the indexing. That indexing is important from the addressing point of view. An index register, which is X, denoted by X, is going to be used in the addressing process of a SIC. Next, we have a link register. So as the name says, link register, this is mainly for the subroutine purposes, meaning that you have a function, that function can call another function. For example, you have a main program of your C or main program of your C++, where you will write a main. Within that, you might call a function like sum. When you call a sum, the control will be passed from calling function to the called function. That means from main function, the control is taken to the sum function. Wherever sum function is available, the function gets executed. Once the execution of sum is over, you are coming back to the called function. So while you come back to the called function, someone has to let you know where to come back into the main function and resume your work. If that is the case, we require a link between called function and calling function, so that once called function execution is over, you will come back to the calling function and start resuming where you have left earlier. If that has to be given, we need to have a register which is going to be called as a L, that is the link register. The main purpose of link register is to store the return address. Return address means to return from a called function to calling function. That is the main purpose of a link register whose number is 2. Then we have a program counter. You have been using program counter for quite some time from CO perspective, which is represented as a PC. The main purpose of program counter, as the name says, it keeps track of the next instruction that need to be executed. For example, you written a 10-line program or 10 instruction program. You are at instruction 3. While you are executing instruction 3, program counter will point the address of the next instruction. I need your attention here, because program counter is what we are going to discuss in every class now onwards almost, because that program counter is very, very important for our discussion and understanding. So thereby, if you look at the program counter functionality, when I am at line 3, when I am taking some instruction at this point of time, PC will always point to the next instruction that I need to execute. For example, if I have a 10-line instruction or a program with me, if I am at the line number 5 now, when line number 5 is getting executed, PC will not point to line number 5, but PC will point to the next instruction, that is line number 6, that is in sequence. Similarly, when I am executing line number 8, PC will be pointing to line number 9. Like that, PC will always keeps track of the next instruction that need to be executed, so that it becomes like a flowchart type for the program counter to understand what is there next in the sequence. So that is the identification of a program counter whose number is 8. So the numbers are correct here. Don't feel 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are missing here, because these are not given by me or you. These are given by the processor itself. So we have to take them as it is. Accumulator means 0, index register means 1, link register means 2, program counter PC means 8, and status word SW, which is 9. What do you mean by status word? You might have heard about a flag register or a condition code register, wherein I want to take some decision. For example, I want to jump if the value is 0. I want to jump if the value is greater than 0, or I want to jump or branch if the value is less than 0, or I want to jump or branch if the value is negative value, or the value is a positive value. Like that, we can have so many conditions being checked. How do you check, or how the system is going to facilitate this condition checking? That is called through the that is facilitated through the register called as a condition code register, or flag register, or a status word. All the 3 names are same, but they give the same information. Since we have each register having 3 bytes, your status word will be having, imagine a 24-bit B0, B1, B2 up to B23. Each bit will represent, some represent carry, some represent overflow, some represent 0, some represent negative, some represent positive. Like that, each of these bits will have a 0 or 1. If it is 1, suppose Z I have used for 0. If Z category is 1, what is the meaning now? The recent computation, the result is 0. Next, N for negative, let us say, that is 0. What do you mean by that? Whenever I check a condition, if N is 0, then I mean that the result of the previous computation is not negative, because it is 0. If it is 1, I say that the result of the previous computation is positive. So like that, the system will take a call when you use if condition, or when you use branching, when you use while loops. All those condition checking is completely based on the status word, or a condition code register, or a flag register. So that number is 9. So these are the various registers what we have in SIC. To quickly recall, we have 5 registers: A, X, L, PC, SW. A for accumulator, X for index register, L for link register, PC for program counter, SW for the status word. The equal numbers to represent internally is 0, 1, 2, 8, 9. So accumulator is represented by 0, index is represented by 1, link is represented by 2, PC is represented by 8, and SW status word is represented by 9. What are the purposes? Accumulator main purpose is to hold the data for intermediate purposes, maybe for mathematical computations, logical computations, or data transfer requirements. Whereas index register X is mainly used for the addressing, by link register L is used to store the data of a return address, mainly in the case of a subroutines. Program counter is mandatory like accumulator because it need to track the next instruction that we are going to have in the pipeline or in the sequence. The last one is the status word, which is going to give the complete description about various conditions. These conditions will keep changing. If you are in instruction 1, you might have different condition. If you are in instruction 2, you will have a different condition. If you are in instruction 3, different like that. Depending upon the type of instruction we have in the program, this condition code register is going to change dynamically, and accordingly your conditions are going to be considered. That's the reason why normally we can see in high level languages, if you put a condition at line number 5, the behavior of the program is different. The same condition at line number 4 is different. Why it is happening? Because each instruction will have a different data being generated as part of the condition code. That is the reason why you have a various values coming or generated as part of your looping or a condition code or a branching. So this is about a register set. So I would like to pause for a while and understand if any doubts in this, because these are all very important for you, and this in architectures we will be using for the entire semester. Suddenly we will be talking about SIC, MSA, link register, accumulator. You should connect here. So if you have any doubts here, I will be again repeating if you want, but let me know if you have any confusion. So meanwhile, let me take attendance and I can come back to you if you have any doubts. So please keep asking doubts in this or up to this memory and register set if you have. So meanwhile, give me attendance. Asta?
Present, sir.
Yes. Abhinav? Abhinav? Is there?
Present, sir.
Okay. Aishwarya?
Present, sir.
Parish?
Yes, sir.
Anu? Anu? Arbaz?
Present, sir.
Arjun?
Present, sir.
Ashok?
Yes, sir.
Binita?
Present, sir.
Bhargavi? Bhargavi? Bhavisha?
Present, sir.
Bhavisha?
Present, sir.
Yes. Chaitra?
Present, sir.
Jabamala Chatterjee?
Present, sir.
Diksha Manjunath?
Present, sir.
Deepika LG?
Present, sir.
Deepika MB?
Present, sir.
Murali Krishna?
Present, sir.
Gangubai? Guria Kumari?
Present, sir.
Harshit?
Present, sir.
Tunjar Singh?
Present, sir.
Kavya? Kavya? Kishore? Kishore? Kishore?
Present, sir. Present, sir.
Okay, Lata?
Yes, sir.
Manisha?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Manisha? Manjunath?
Yes, sir.
Nayana?
Yes, sir.
Nilanjan?
Yes, sir.
Nilanjan?
Yes, sir.
First class?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nishant?
Present, sir.
Pavana? Pavitra?
Present, sir.
Maithili?
Present, sir.
Priyanka?
Present, sir.
Pavan Kumar?
Present, sir.
Akash?
Yes, sir. Present, sir.
Rajeshwari?
Yes, sir. Present, sir.
Rakesh? Rakesh? Ramya?
Present, sir.
Rashmi?
Present, sir.
Ravi Shankar?
Yes, sir.
Rizwan?
Present, sir.
Vishal?
Present, sir.
Savita?
Yes, sir.
Shruti? Sneha?
Yes, sir.
Spurti?
Present, sir.
Srinidhi?
Present, sir.
Srinivas?
Present, sir.
Sunil?
Present, sir.
Vaishnavi,
Present, sir.
Vinny.
Present, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Who? Who is yes or no? Okay. Fine. Anyhow, now let us come back to the discussion. Any
Yes,
doubts
sir.
on this?
Sir.
Any? Yes, please.
Sir. Sir, Shruti ji.
Okay, okay.
Present, sir.
Now let me know any doubts on memory and registers. See, tomorrow before the class, I will have a quiz. You should answer them. So if you have any doubts, you can ask me now only. Why it is so? Why only this? Why not? If you have any confusion, please let me know. No doubts?
No, sir.
Fine. If that is the case, let me move, or you can come back to me whenever you have doubts, not a problem. Next. So we have discussed about memory, we have discussed about register set. So what next we have? So we have data formats, meaning that like your data types, what are the data formats that are supported by SIC? So SIC supports only two data formats. As you see here, it supports characters, it supports integers. It will not support anything beyond that. So no floating, no double, nothing. It's only characters and integers. And characters, the size of character is 1 byte, which you are all aware of it. It is same with SIC also. But look at the integers. Integers here will take 3 bytes. Again, I would like to take your attention. Don't confuse now with the C language. Integer is 2 bytes. C++, integer is 2 bytes. That is totally different. And you should be talking today. It is not the C language or C++ which is going to tell whether integer is 2 bytes or 3 bytes or 4 bytes. Who is going to tell now? It is a underlying operating system, or rather underlying hardware or underlying architecture that is going to decide whether integer is a 1 byte or a 2 byte or a 3 byte or a 4 byte. If you remember in the first class we talked about, if you take a Unix or Linux, the integer takes 2 bytes in Windows. The same C language or C program, if you take in Linux, integer takes 4 bytes. Why so? If it is C language is going to tell you integer is 2 bytes or 4 bytes, it should be same across the platforms. But that is not happening. So what you should understand now, till now you might have had something in mind that the C language is going to tell you it is 2 bytes for integer or something else. Now it is not a language. Who is going to tell you? It is architecture. That's why now you'll appreciate that the compiler of a C is based on the architecture, and hence taking the information from the architecture, C language says, I am going to take you with 2 bytes for integers in Windows. I'm going to give you 4 bytes for the architecture of your Linux, like that. So it is not a language that is going to put a restriction, but it is underlying architecture now. So that is the concept with which we are seeing at the importance or relevance of a machine architecture with respect to anything that we do in the system. So coming back to here now, the data formats we have two. One is a character which occupies 1 byte of size, whereas integers will occupy 3 bytes, which is a 1 word as far as the SIC is concerned. So hope there is no confusion now. In C language, don't bring it here because C language was totally different. And again, you should not say C language takes 2 bytes. Tomorrow, if somebody asks you, tell me how many bytes a integer takes in C language, you should ask them, it is not a C language. You tell me which architecture you are talking about or which operating system you are going to talk about. You should have that clarity. Now onwards, if anybody asks you in Viva, tell me what is the size of an integer in C language, you should correct their question. It is not the language of C which is going to put a restriction on the size of integer, but it is underlying architecture that is nothing but your operating system. If that is the case, probably you have a correct information about this. So with that, probably we can conclude that data formats are 2 in SIC. There is no floating point that is being supported under SIC machine architecture. So any doubts here?
No, sir.
Thank you. Next. So having said that, we have a data formats, which are two. Now let us look at the instruction format. Since SIC is a very, very simple architecture we are discussing, it is having only one instruction format, that is nothing but your a 3-byte instruction format or a 24-bit instruction format, which is precisely having opcode. If you have any doubt on opcode, please let me know, because I am considering that in CO you have discussed about, or you learned rather about the assembly language to some extent, where the teacher would have told about the opcode, operand, address, displacement and stuff like that. But if you have any doubt or if you could not understand, please let me know. If you don't know what is opcode, if you don't know what is address, if you don't know what is the target address, you please raise, let me know before I discuss this. So you all aware of what is opcode?
Yes, sir.
Sir, recall it once, sir.
You are able to recall, or you want me to explain?
Explain once, sir.
No, sir, recall it once.
You recalled.
No, sir, you only explain, sir, once.
Okay. See, opcode is nothing but, as the name says, operation code. Opcode is a small, a shorthand notation for a operation code. So as we know that, just now we have seen registers of SIC, A, X, L, PC, SW. What are the numbers we have given? 0, 1, 2, 8, 9. So we have given some unique numbers. Why we are given numbers to them? Because internally system does not know what is A, what is L, what is X, what is PC. It knows them only by unique number like our Aadhaar card. That is a number 0, 1, 2, 8, 9 and stuff like that. Similar to that, when I write add something, ADD, move something, MOV, multiply something, MUL, stop something, SDP, like that. When I use the code word, system does not understand. So what we have to do now, we have to convert them into the mission understandable form, which we call it as your zeros and ones, low level language. But for us to write a program, you cannot write 0 and 1. You write some code like ADD, MOV, MUL, LDA, STA. These are the notations what we'll be using, and these notations are going to be of this format. Let me show some. So you see some instructions here. I am using ADD, I am using AND, I am using DIV, I am using HIO, I am using Z, I am using ZEQ. These are the left hand side what you see under mnemonic. They are going to be the instructions what we have, and these instructions are going to be your representation of what performance you want to do. But at the same time, if you look at the third column here, which is going to be opcode. Opcode means what? Operation code, which is a shorthand notation, rather hexadecimal representation. If you look at somewhere, you see B, A, C, F. What are they? They're nothing but your hexadecimal representation. Your operation is represented in a hexadecimal form. Thereby, operation code or opcode is nothing but a hexadecimal shorthand notation for the various activities we do: ADD, clear, comparison, divide, fix, float, jump, jump on equal. Like that, so many instructions are there. Each processor will have its own set of instructions, and the opcode is nothing but an hexadecimal representation internally for every instruction that we have. So that is the concept of a opcode. Hope it is clear now. So opcode is going to take 8 bits. Why it is 8 bits? We'll see later. Opcode is going to take 8 bits. Then we have a address which is going to take 15 bits, because total size of this instruction is 24 bits. Out of this, 8 bits are given to opcode, 15 bits are given to the address, remaining 1 bit is given to the addressing mode. If you remember, in the previous register set, we have taken X as the addressing mode. X as the one of the register that is loaded with the some data, and that X value will tell you what type of addressing we are going to use. If X is equal to 0, it is a direct addressing. If X is equal to 1, it is going to be indexed addressing. Again, I would like you to recall the various addressing modes you might have studied during your CO concept, that is in first semester, wherein teacher would have talked about 10 to 11 addressing modes: direct addressing, indirect addressing, register direct addressing, register indirect addressing, auto increment, auto decrement, immediate addressing, base with index with displacement. There are so many relative addressing. There are so many addressing modes, at least 10 to 11 addressing modes you might have seen in CO subject. More or less, we are going to use some 5 to 6 of them in this discussion of system software as well. But what I want you is to know what do you mean by an addressing mode, because you should understand the addressing mode. Maybe the next point will say what an addressing mode is. But at this point of time, the instruction format of SIC is going to have single instruction format, which is a 3 bytes or 1 word or 24 bit, wherein 8 bits are reserved for opcode, 1 bit is reserved for the type of addressing, remaining 15 bits are reserved for the address. Totally, a 24-bit format of instruction is available. If X is equal to 0, the addressing mode is going to be direct addressing mode. If X is equal to 1, the addressing mode is going to be indexed addressing mode, not indirect, indexed. Please remember, it is not indirect here, it is only indexed, meaning that SIC supports only 2 addressing. One is the direct addressing, other one is the index addressing mode. So probably I will stop at this point of time. So we will continue with the remaining material with the next class. So, but if you have any doubts till now, probably you can let me know. We will have some quiz. I will share some quiz for the whatever discussed in the previous 2 classes. And again, tomorrow I will have one more quiz based on what you have understood. Just to understand, don't worry about the weightage of that. We want to see that how much you are able to assimilate through this. If you have any doubts, you are welcome to discuss and come back to us. But that quiz is going to help us to know whether you are able to follow or some more extra efforts need to be put from our end. So with this, I will stop at this point of time. The remaining will continue in the next class. Okay. So if you have any doubts on memory, registers, data formats, instruction formats, you can let me know. No doubts? Okay. If you don't have any doubts, probably we'll wind up this class.